It was a warm evening, the kind where the lights were soft and laughter floated like music through the air. And we had gathered around the fire pit in Marcy's backyard with wine glasses in hand and stories flowing freer than the drinks. And she was glowing in the middle of it all. My wife, my Olivia, the woman I had loved since we were 22, the woman I had married under the shade of an old oak tree while our families watched us promise forever. And I had always admired her sharp wit, her effortless beauty, her ability to charm an entire room with one glance. But that night, something shifted, something small and cruel took root, and it all started with one of her friends making a joke about men and their egos and sizes. And I had laughed too, not realizing that the line between teasing and humiliation was about to blur. And she leaned back, tossed her hair, and said it with a little too much joy. Said it like a punchline, not a truth, but it hit like one said, "Oh please, Ethan, has nothing to brag about in that department, believe me." And they all burst into laughter. Even her best friend Sasha, who always looked at me a little too long. And I felt my chest tighten, my world tilt just slightly, as I smiled that practiced smile, the one I used when I was younger, and wanted to disappear from a room. And she didn't notice, or maybe she did, but didn't care. Maybe the wine had loosened her tongue too much. Maybe she thought we were all too close for shame, but my heart had already cracked, and I sat through the rest of the evening, pretending to be someone else, someone stronger, someone unfazed. And later, when we got home, she reached for me, and I gently stepped away, pretending to be tired, pretending not to be drowning in the echo of her laughter. And I didn't say anything, as I packed a bag, just a few things enough to get me to the cabin upstate, the one no one knew about, not even her. And when the sun rose, I was gone, leaving behind my wedding ring on the nightstand, and a silence that would haunt her more than any goodbye ever could. The days passed, and she called at first, once, twice, 3 times. Then it turned into texts, the kind that start casual. "Hey, where are you? Hope everything's okay." Then more frantic. "Ethan, please talk to me. Ethan, come home." And I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I needed to hear myself think, without her voice in my head, without the memory of that night, replaying every time I closed my eyes. And I sat by the lake every morning, watching the mist curl over the water, sipping coffee from a chipped mug, and wondering when I had become so invisible to the one person I had given everything to. And on the 4th night, she showed up soaked in rain, eyes swollen from crying, standing on the porch like a ghost from a dream. And I didn't open the door at first, just watched her through the curtain, as she whispered my name again and again. And finally I let her in, not out of kindness, but curiosity. And she stepped inside, dripping and broken. And her first words weren't excuses or defenses. They were, "I'm sorry." And not the casual kind, not the kind you say to smooth things over, but the kind that comes from the gut raw and shaking. And she fell to her knees, hands on my thighs, as if grounding herself, and she said, "I thought I was being funny. I thought we were all just playing around. I didn't know I hurt you like that. I didn't know it cut so deep." And I told her I wasn't angry, not really, just tired. Tired of pretending that it didn't matter. Every time she used me as the punchline. Every time my quietness was mistaken for weakness, and she held me then tighter than she ever had before. And it wasn't lust, or need, or guilt. It was something deeper, something ancient. Like she finally saw the man who had always stood beside her. Not because he was big, or loud, or bold, but because he loved her, in the kind of way that stitched wounds shut, and gave her all of himself, without ever asking for applause. And we stayed in that cabin for a week, Just the two of us, relearning the shape of each other, in silence, in touch, in tears. And one morning as the sun rose, she placed my ring back in my palm, her hands trembling, and said, "I don't want you to vanish ever again." And I said, "Then don't give me a reason to." And she didn't, not, after that, not ever again.